Susan Milligan.
And I'm Shea Wood. Welcome back. We're glad you're back from last chapter that we talked about coming to the end of yourself. And what that really means, what we really talked about is the prodigal son and how he was down with the pigs and he was eating all the muck. And he came to himself and he said, you know what? The solution is not in me.
Right.
I've done everything I can to live it up. But the solution is not here with these pigs in this dirt. So he came to the end of himself and he realized he needed a solution. And that solution is Jesus.
And so we all go through that. We all have to come to the end of ourselves. We all have to decide, okay, I'm powerless in myself.
Right.
And I really need to turn myself over to a good God. And so in the chapter, are you laughing at me?
I'm laughing at us.
Oh,
It's
okay. In the chapter, we're still trying to get used to this camera thing. In the chapter called A Place to Discover Who God Is to You, it's chapter 3. On page 39, we make a statement that says, if your idea of God is warped in any way, then you get your powerlessness coming to the end of yourself, plus the untruth about God, which does not equal freedom.
No, it makes it worse.
Makes it so much worse, because what you're doing is saying, I'm powerless, I'm turning it over to a powerful God, but I don't really believe he's powerful.
Well, and the power that he has is to mess with you and to toy with you. It's not to redeem you and to make you whole. It's a very scary place to hand your muck over and try to trust in this God that you really don't understand.
So we talk about in the chapter how we get a warped sense of God, and we came up with 4 filters. And those filters are your parents, your environment,
Spiritual
upbringing. Oh, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
And sin.
And, sin. Yes. Our own sin and its consequences.
Correct.
So everybody knows that until you know God, your parents are really God in your life.
Right.
So if there's any warped sin or things they haven't dealt with in their own life, that can transfer into how you see God.
That's very powerful. And the problem with that is it's not about blaming your parents.
No.
But you're entrusted to your parents. I mean, who else are you going to look up to? That's
Right.
who you look up to. And so therefore that translates into, what you do. And then moving forward, your environment. What kind of environment were you raised in? Susan, where were you raised?
I was raised in the military.
And I was raised in a musician's home / single parent home.
So we had different environments. So we saw God differently.
Completely different.
I saw him as a very authoritative God, and you saw him as a what?
Very absent. He was for everybody else but for
not
me.
you.
Right.
Wow.
And so your environment, just in general, it doesn't matter, maybe you were rich or maybe you're poor or whatever, but those create those filters about how you see God. And so what we encourage you in this chapter is to unveil the truth about who he is.
Also, the other 2, your spiritual upbringing. I was raised in the hellfire and brimstone time, where if you don't act right, you're going to hell. So I thought God was just really mean.
Right. And mine was all about rules. So if you followed the rules just so, then you were very good and you earned your way to heaven. So it's a very works-oriented idea. And what we've learned now is that's totally untrue. Grace is sufficient. Jesus is so powerful to overcome that. And so we're thankful to uncover those untruths in our own lives. And then the previous sins. We've been through a few things in our lives. That, of course, you have sins of your parents because you grow up in their household and they're not perfect because they're people. And then you have the things that you choose for yourself, whether be in high school, you get married, you don't get married, you live, it just gets a lot.
It's just a lot. We don't want to unpack all
it's
that.
A lot.
Okay,
we're not
it's
unpacking
just sin
that
has consequences, and sometimes we make those out to be God's fault.
Right.
And it's actually our fault because we sinned and there's a consequence.
Right. It's like when your 2-year-old, you say, no, don't touch the stove. It's hot, it's hot, it's hot. And they chose to touch it anyway and they burn their hand. It's their consequence.
Yeah. And so you're not a bad parent because they burn their hand. It's they burned their hand because they didn't listen.
Right.
And a lot of that goes on with God.
Yeah.
We're tired of blaming God for everything.
Right. That's right. But he can redeem those consequences.
Yes, he can.
And he makes all things new.
Oh.
And we're so grateful for that.
Yes.
So please join us for chapter 4.
Next week.
Next week. We'll see you then.
Thank you. Make
Bye.
sure you comment.
Yeah, please
We'd
comment.
love to hear from you.
That's right.
Bye. All right. Bye.